Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live Out Loud Wednesday. Tonight's topic we have is Black History Month. It is just me and Devin here this evening to speak to you about some of our thoughts on that. So just please be aware that some of this content can be triggering and or, might make you feel some type of way. If that is the case, please log off, stop watching it now, because we're going to get into some deep discussions, some things that actually need to be said and talked about. Devin, you want to start and just tell us, I guess, some of your thoughts on Black History Month?
Yes. So, just doing a little bit of research on Black history. Of course, I'm Black, so a lot of us feel like we should know a lot about our history, which a lot of us don't,
We do.
because a lot of it has been concealed and not taught in schools and things like that. So, me being 38, starting to learn more about Black history, it's kind of disturbing. You see the good. Of course, there was lots of things that we invented, and there were things that we ended up overcoming. But if you really go back in the day, Black history started very painful and tragic, and there was a lot of things that tried to tear our Black families apart from day one. So I kind of did some research on the good and the bad. I have a list of things that Black inventors created, which is phenomenal in itself. But then I did also look up something, kind of a brief timeline, just starting back to the late 1800s to the current, which I can quickly go over that, just to give a brief overview of what racism in the United States was. So the late 1800s was the Jim Crow segregation laws that led to establishment of racial segregated neighborhoods in the United States. Then you jump to 1930 to 1960s, where redlining and urban renewal allowed for the concentration of industrial polluting facilities and toxic waste sites in predominantly Black neighborhoods. Then in 1970, NEPA, it's NEPA, I might be saying that wrong, requires federal agencies to consider the environmental impacts of their actions, but does not equ- equitably address the racial disparities and exposure to pollution and access to environmental resources. And then if you jump to the 1980s, the environmental justice movement is glamorized when Warren County, New North Carolina residents protested the disposal of toxic PCBs in the county landfill. The term environmental racism is coined. And then we have Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which, we all know about Hurricane Katrina. And then the present day, the climate justice movement continues to address the systematic inequities of environmental racism and advocate for a more just and sustainable future for all. So that's just briefly, what happened in our history. It can definitely get a lot deeper and darker, and the Jim Crow era. You can find so many different things from that time frame. Just how they had um, so many different things. I don't know even if I want to get that deep on this podcast because of the stuff that I was looking at, and it was like I don't even know if I want to necessarily go that deep because Black history, we're supposed to be celebrating it, and you think of this month as it's an amazing time, but then if you really think about what our people actually went through,
Mhm.
just for us to be here today is like crazy. Like me and you were two different people. We would have been in two different areas. You would have been in the house, I would have been outside, just based on our skin colors, you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
honestly, and it's just that simple thing alone, having that thought of being in the 1800s and, seeing someone of a fairer skin, and then me feeling some type of jealousy just because of your fair skin. And by you being, you're, mixed race, how does Black history, when you hear about it, what does that make you think of?
Mm, with Black history for me, um, I can say for the most part, I was raised primarily by my mother, which was Black. Um, my father's side of the family really didn't care for us. My father and his side of the family, I would say, was prejudice. I remember growing up that my father used to always tell us that he owned one. Um, we were his nigger kids. And so to me, um, I didn't feel like I was white because I was never accepted on the white side of my family. I was raised by my mother. I know her family. I know all of my Black cousins and everyone else. We used to go to my grandmother's house as kids on my dad's side, and you could tell like we weren't really accepted. I remember my mom and my dad got into it one time, and my grandfather, my dad's father, shot up our house. We endured a lot just because we were raised in the area of where whites and blacks were not supposed to be together, but were trying to like finally come over that bridge. And so there was a lot going on. My dad was part of the Hells Angels, and my mom's uncle was a Black Panther.
Mm,
And so trying to understand that this is my father and I love him and I care for him, and this is my mother and I love her and care for her, trying to be in the middle of that and understanding that. And coming from a child that is light skinned, it's like we also don't have a place.
yeah.
So growing up, it was like, yes, we talk about Black history, but not much of it. Don't really understand it. All I know is that whites don't care for blacks, and you know, it's basically the same thing. Blacks really don't care for whites, and so it's like when you're standing in the middle of the road and no one's trusting either side, and nobody's trying to make any movements to do anything about it. It can become a very blurry place of not understanding like what's really going on. Like I'm mixed, but I don't belong. Growing up, I didn't belong on either. I either wasn't dark enough to be able to get along and hang out with the Black kids, or I was too dark to be with the white kids. And so trying to learn history on that sometimes fell through the crack with me
Hmm.
of do I even try to figure that out? Like my family accepts me and my family says that I'm Black, but other people don't. You know, my hair is too fine or my skin's too light or whatever it may be. And so, yes, there was slavery and there's, all of these things that our ancestors have endured. But I think some of that too, we allowed them to do this to us to the point where we even hate ourselves,
Yeah.
to where there's so much hurt and there's so much anger and there's so much hatred that we don't even realize that we are causing the most of the chaos for ourselves.
Yeah. I can agree with that. That black on black crime.
Hmm.
And a lot of us don't even realize we're destroying our own communities,
Hmm.
especially with the George Floyd. Like when I seen, at that time I lived in an area where I was literally blocks away from, protesting and buildings being burned. And, I grew up in Egan. So I feel like my history itself is different than some other people's growing up. I in the third grade didn't know I was different, right, quote unquote, than the rest of the classmates, because my hair was kinkier than theirs. And I mean, it wasn't necessarily because my parents shielded me from that, but it was more like they just wanted me to be a kid. They didn't want me to necessarily focus on being a black kid in a school versus just being a kid in school. So, I had that culture shock of, oh, my hair is different than theirs, and oh, my skin is darker, than theirs. And I had different body structure than a lot of the girls in third grade and things like that. So I didn't really realize that until third, fourth grade when it was like, okay, so that's why, kids act differently around me with certain things. But I never really paid attention to it until I started to get to that age. Then I started to notice, like, even just when we went to the grocery store, both of my parents were, not necessarily rich and not necessarily poor. We weren't on public assistance, but we
Had
were
support.
able to, yeah, we were able to take vacations with families, our family every year. We went to plays and museums and all that type of stuff. So when we would go to the grocery store, I remember the checkout lady asking my mom if she would be paying with EBT. And I remember at 9 asking my mom, like, it wasn't EBT at that time. It was food stamps. And I remember asking my mom, like,
What
food
is that?
stamps?
Hmm.
Yeah, I was like, food stamps, what's that? And my mom, quickly just said, no, we're not. And then ended up paying. And then she kind of told me after we left what that was. And it was just like, and I didn't even realize that lady was profiling us at that time. So you assume because it's a black mom and a child in a store that we would be using public assistance. And my mom didn't get upset by it. My mom has always been like a very cool, calm, collected type person. So I didn't look at it as something to be offensive until my mom explained to me like what it was. And I'm like, why would she think that we were on that? Like, both of my parents work. So I didn't never look at life in that perspective until I got into high school and my parents ended up getting divorced. And then I did see the different side of now we're not taking those trips and the grocery store runs aren't the same and
Hmm.
now we're moving into a more area that isn't as well off as Egan, and that's when I was in St. Paul, and it was literally like a culture shock. Like I literally had that moment like, oh, I'm being raised by a single mother. You go from a two-parent household, well off in Egan, to now you're being raised by a single parent in St. Paul. It was like literally a culture shock. Like I didn't even know my conversation was different. Like the way that I talk with people, they were like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I grew up in Egan." Like I didn't even sound the way I sound now because of course, I grew up and my voice changed and my grammar changed and all of that, but it was just funny to hear how people that I started to meet and people from Chicago at that time, they like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I live in Egan." Like
Foreign. You're foreign, girl. You're foreign.
longest, like that was what everybody would call me. Like she's from Egan. Like
Come here, Egan.
man,
Yep.
and it took me the longest to try to like strip myself from that. And I think people don't even realize, kids who are raised that way, they're not raised that way intentionally. Like that's how they were raised. So it was like it was just sad for me to have to go through that emotional roller coaster.
Hmm.
That was my history. Going through things and people teasing me because I had proper grammar and all
Hmm.
that stuff. Like what you say? You say all the words correctly. Like I pronounced all my words correctly, and I didn't use all of that. So
Hmm.
I just said all that to
You
say
didn't have an accent. You
I
wasn't
didn't
using
I
ebonics.
didn't have
No
any of that.
slang.
Not none of that. I didn't have any of that. And it took me a while to like deprogram myself from being the suburban girl. Not saying I like purposely did it, but I probably purposely did it at that time just because I was tired of people saying that to me. Like, why do you talk so proper? I'm like, I didn't know education was a bad thing. I'm sorry. But no, I just say all that because, even at that time, that was in, the 90s, I still experienced racism.
Hmm.
And then, getting older and starting to work in corporate America, I've had a quite a few, incidents where I would be going upstairs to my office with my badge and I have all the correct information and things that I'm supposed to have to access to where I'm going, and still being asked by complete strangers, "Are you lost? Why are you here?" And I'm looking at them like, "Are you lost?" Because I work here. I've been working here the last 3 years. Like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me where I'm going? But I didn't even think of that as being something that would have ever happened, because it didn't happen until those situations came about. But it was just like, I guess people just assume certain things about people. And
People
it's just,
are people are always assuming, and so I'm so happy that you even said that because I I have experienced some racism, but not much. But it hasn't been because I'm light skinned. It's been because a lot of people assume and mistaken that I'm Mexican. They don't know that I'm black, white, and native. They think I'm Mexican. And so I don't experience that. When they learn, like, oh, she's black, then it's a problem.
oh,
But it's like you've already gotten to know me and I've kind of already grew on you, or the situation is already done and over, and there's nothing that you can block me to do. Um, I worked at my job for 5 years before they learned that my mother was black. Um,
wow.
they just assumed that I was Mexican. I was just an American Mexican. I didn't speak Spanish. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Would have told you guys from the beginning, but nobody asked.
Wow. 5 years.
I choose not to answer that on applications. Like, I'm not going to tell you what my race is because why do I need to?
Yeah.
Um, I think that alone is profiling. And so, if I fill out an application, that's an optional question. I don't have to answer that, and I'm not going to answer that. So you'll see me when I arrive, and a lot of people just mistaken that I'm Mexican. Um, so I haven't experienced a lot of it. Like I've never experienced it with the police.
Mm.
Um, I've never had any issues when it came down to the police. I think the only incidents that I've ever really had is if I called them and I was the one that was irate by the time they arrived, then yes, they're gonna go ahead and they're gonna calm me down. But other than that, normally I know how to exercise my rights.
Yeah.
I made sure that I was educated enough in those areas to be able to tell you what my rights are and what it is that you're able to do in these incidents. Um, I know the normal black person would not be able to do that, not being alone and not on camera and everything else. But again, I think police even assume like, oh, she's Mexican.
Mm.
I don't know why people think that.
Your name is Latino descent, I think, ain't it?
Well, no, actually, Davina is a Hebrew abbreviation for David.
Mm. Okay.
So
Well, maybe
it
they confuse that with Benita.
maybe they they like Davina, Kadia, same thing.
Right. So she looks like it. Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, my experience with the police, I would say I haven't never had any terrible experiences with the police, only because I'm not like I don't want to say anything and offend anybody, but I know how to conduct myself in certain situations, if that makes sense. So I've never been an agitator. If I get pulled over, I know I'm getting pulled over for some type of reason. I know that they're trying to do their job. I let them do their job. I do ask, questions that I know what my rights are. But do I ever make a situation worse? No. Does that mean every single thing is going to go exactly how it's supposed to go? No. But I'll say that I've never had, knock on wood, never had a situation that, became bad just based on me being a black woman. I've had situations where I've been with people who have had bad run-ins, to where they were mistreating them because they are black men. And
Mhm.
then me knowing how to talk to them, just kind of, letting them know I need all of your badge numbers. I would like each and every one of your cards, and stuff like that. Just trying to be um, more. Oh, what did I just do?
Mhm.
And now I'm frozen. Okay, there we go. Just always being aware of my surroundings and what's going on and stuff like that. So I would never say I had a bad experience with the police. Have I had run-ins with them to where I've heard them speak to me a certain type of way? Yes. I've been in a situation where, to make a long story short, I was in a fight on my 18th birthday, where I ended up, getting, yeah, a cut on the side of my nose, and a friend of mine's car was messed up, and we were over north at the Honeybee gas station when everybody used to go up there, and the fight ended up, two cars got messed up. I was all cut up, but I didn't know I was cut up until afterwards, and I ended up fighting three or four different females that drove off, and basically, we had to call the police because of the vehicle that was messed up to make a report. Um, so, make a long story short, the police came and they pulled up, rolled the window down, and said, "You bees shouldn't have been over here fighting," and pulled off. That was the only time and then we had to literally wait and call them again and wait another hour for them to come out. That was the only time I ever experienced anything to that magnitude. Like, I couldn't even believe it happened. I'm like, did that really just happen?
I would have been floored too. Like,
Yeah. And that was like a time when I don't know why. It already took them a long time to get there. So we were already waiting for like an hour or two for them to get there. And then they got there and that's what they did. So it was like, what? Like, yeah. I was like, is this for real? But see, that was what in 2000, I was 18. So 2002 or 2003, something like that. So I don't know. It could have been a lot going on in the city that day. I don't know, to be honest. But yeah, that's the only time I experienced that.
yeah,
But
you was over north, and they just was like, you know what, this happens a little bit too often, and we ain't even doing nothing about it.
yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, a whole different lifetime ago. Seriously. I've been alive longer than that time ago. So yeah. But to bring up some good Black history, I just want to read a couple things that some Black inventors have made up, which I think a lot of people maybe don't even realize on a daily basis that you're using something that a Black person created.
Absolutely.
Um, let's see. Wait, this has all the okay, so simple things like a biscuit cutter, folding bed, coin changer, rotating engine, letter boxes, stainless steel pads, your home security system, a planter, an ironing board, street sweepers, lawn mowers, typewriters, lotions and soaps, paints and stains, peanut butter, ice cream molds, printing press, envelope seals, pressure cookers, window cleaners, pencil sharpeners, fire extinguishers, locks, shoe lasting machines, lubricators, the elevator, gas mask, hairbrush, heating furnace, folding chairs, hand stamps. The list goes on and on of things. Helicopters, so many things that Black people created. And if you really think about what we had to experience to go through to become this, I mean, the blood, sweat, and tears that our ancestors had, it didn't go in vain. And we still came on top. And that's one thing I thought about as I was like looking at some documentaries. I'm like, black people is strong.
Well, you should have known black folks are strong. A white man came, basically kidnapped you, brought you here to America so that you can show them how to
Yeah.
create and make and do all of these things that they just didn't have it within themselves to be able to do.
Yeah.
That
And
alone
and
says,
that's one thing, and I do want to say, when we speak about black history, we're not downing any other race. I think sometimes that's what people hear, because we're talking highly about one race versus the next.
mhm,
Doesn't mean we're downing anybody else. It's just about us shedding a light on the things that we've experienced and how we've overcome, everything that was tried to put
destroy us.
to destroy us, literally. Like everything that was placed in front of us was supposed to kill us off, make us to be mules and slaves for so many years. Where the fact that all so many black people are millionaires and creators and so many just smart individuals, like it's amazing to see how much the world has elevated with just that. And
Well, even just saying like the man took us, like it's because that man doesn't have a name that we know of.
yeah.
Um, but don't get me wrong, there was white people even way back then that didn't feel as if what was going on and happening was right.
Oh yeah.
So in the process of me trying to do my due diligence and research, um, what I never knew is Carter Woodson in 1960 was the one that ended up bringing up Negro Week.
Mm,
Negro Week was a week for Black folks to celebrate their accomplishments. It then changed over when President Gerald Ford in 1976 decided that it doesn't need to be Negro Week, it should be Black History Month.
mm,
Like we should get a whole month. Like if everybody else is celebrating, like why not? And that those were things that I never knew.
yeah.
Um, Carter Woodson was white. Um, so to know back in 1960 there was a white man that wanted to celebrate
Hmm.
Negro Week, like come on. Not everybody is good and not everybody is bad. There's a mix and a due diligence of everything. So I think the whole point of the matter is to get out of there's a lot of hatred out here and we all have to as humans do better and we have to acknowledge the pain that one carries with them. I might not have as much pain as a black woman as my mother or my aunties or even my grandmother and my ancestors, but their pain carries out to be your pain. And so
Hmm.
to be able to acknowledge like why people still today are angry and upset about what happened way back then, one, because our pain, their pain becomes our pain. Two, because some of it is still happening. It's just undercover, swept under the rug and tried to be hidden and disguised as something that it isn't.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people that hate individuals for the color of their skin. The truth of the matter of it all, though, is pretty soon the entire world is going to be mixed like me. There's not going to be a such thing as a pure black person or a pure white person or a pure Mexican person. Um, we can only integrate so much to where we're going to run out. And so when you just continue to mix and mix and mix, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But Black History Month is a time for us to, one, start educating ourselves because, yes, when we decided that we were going to do this today, I was like, I really don't know too much. I mean, I watch a lot of movies, but those are still things that you have to pick and choose from. I watched the Madam CJ Walker, and I thought it was amazing how she came up with hair care. She worked for a woman that actually was doing hair care and
Yep.
she wanted to work for her. She asked her, could she work for her? And the lady dismissed her and told her, like, you're dark skinned and you're ugly, so you're not going to be able to sell it. Like, I'm light skinned and I got good hair, so I can sell this lie to somebody. And now she was able to go ahead and uplift other women being as black as she was.
Hmm.
It was an amazing story. And I watched all of the episodes all in one night because I was so eager to learn, like, where is she gonna end up with this? And she was a strong Black woman.
Hmm.
All she wanted to do was uplift other women and make them look beautiful so that they had a better spirit about themselves.
Yeah.
That was one
Well,
of my favorites.
yeah, I like that movie. I feel like I watched it in one day too. It might have been 2 days, but I watched it back to back too. Speaking of Black allies, those individuals who may be watching our podcast that might not be Black, but want to try to um, be, I don't want to necessarily say a use for this month, but someone to be able to give their, love and support during Black History Month. So I just found a couple of tips for allies during Black History Month. Don't oversimplify what Black history stands for. Avoid oversimplification or trivialization of significant events and figures. So I take that as, allow Black people to have their feelings. Some Black people get angry when they think about all of what we've been through. Allow them to have those feelings. You never know what their family history might have been through, and they might have a great grandmother or grandfather that experienced things directly. So that feeling could be something that they have internal. Respect Black voices. Black history is a time to amplify Black voices and stories. Avoid speaking over or for Black individuals. Instead, listen, learn, and uplift Black voices and narratives. Um, Number one that I love is next. It is educate yourself.
Mm.
Don't rely solely on Black individuals to educate you about their history and experiences. Take the initiative to educate yourself by reading books, watching documentaries, and engaging with educational resources. And then the last one I'll say is respect Black spaces. If you are invited to participate in Black centered events or spaces, do so respectfully. Be mindful of the purpose and significance of these spaces and follow the guidelines set by the organizers. I think it's good because, everybody other than Black people aren't necessarily not celebrating this month, So I think
Mhm.
anyone who is not necessarily Black, it's good to have those things in mind when you are, coming across individuals, who might be celebrating or having those conversations. Allow Black people to have their moment. This is Black History Month, and don't feel like anything is oversaturated because of all the things that we went through. Like, if you really think about it, racism and slavery was a lot longer than us being free, still to this day. So I think some people still kind of get, in their feelings about it. I'll say I personally do certain times. I've watched certain movies where it kind of, touched me a little bit, like, whoa. Not saying I hate anyone, because I just don't have that in me, to hate anyone just because of their skin color, but it does make you kind of look at interactions that you've had with people, and you're kind of like, huh, I wonder if this person treated me a certain way just because of their experience with certain things. I have really good, best friends of mine who are white. So I could never hate anyone because of their color. It's about people's ignorance that makes you hate them. So I think, anyone can be a racist. Black people can be racist. There are Black people who are racist to other Black people. So it's never necessarily a skin color, it's the ignorance. And I think that's the biggest thing that people need to think about when they talk about racism is it's not necessarily a white or Black thing, more as it's a ignorance and a lack of information that makes people hate one another. So I just wanted to say that, I know Black History Month is a time to celebrate and talk about, all of our, what did Ebony say? Prejudice. Yeah,
Prejudice,
prejudice,
not
not race.
racist.
Yep. Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's so much hate in this world to where there's no way we can't try to spread as much love as we can, and that's definitely not what we're here to do today. We're not trying to spread any hate, just trying to bring a light to, what Black history actually stands for.
Well, and too, just to be trying to be aware that I would say and this is just a personal thought of utilize Black History Month as like a learning tool, but don't only acknowledge somebody else's feelings because it's Black History Month. So this month you got the floor girl and you can, you know, talk about Black history. Like, no, we should be able to talk about this all day, every day,
Hmm.
regardless of whatever month it is. Whatever our pain is and whatever is causing us a rift in our life, we should be able to turn to our friend, regardless of whatever their color is, and have a conversation. And it should never be like, oh my gosh, like, why are we talking about this again? Um, being Black is no different than being in an abusive relationship.
Hmm.
So if we can talk about domestic violence all day, every day, why can we only talk about being Black in February?
Yeah.
Um, and what it is that our ancestors endured, and the things that we see on these movies that are hurtful and sometimes triggering and makes us angry because we don't understand why, why and how can somebody hate somebody that much to where they want to do those kind of things? Like, where does that even come from? And so a lot of people, like when we think about our emotions, if you weren't a slave yourself and this is affecting you, it's because it's taking you on an emotional roller coaster and you don't know how to handle those emotions. And sometimes, if we don't know how to handle our emotions, then our sister and our brother or our friend or whoever needs to be able to help guide us through that and give us the tools for that. So it always takes the next person to be able to help out. Instead of us dividing up and being like, oh, she's crazy, she's tripping today. No, help me. If
Yeah.
you see that I'm a person that I'm in need, we're human at the end of the day. And it's not only going to be a race that's going to die out, it's going to be the human race that's going to die out if we don't start doing something different quick. Um,
Hmm.
there's bigger issues out here in the world than you not liking me because I'm Black.
Right.
Because once there is no more Black or white, what is going to be the next thing? Because we're always going to find some reason why we don't like the next person.
Hmm.
It's not going to be because you have coarse hair and I have fine hair. No, it's going to be because you're poor and I'm rich. And we
Yep.
already have that.
Yep.
Or, you know, I dress better than you and you can't dress like I dress. Or I drive a better car than you do, or whatever it may be. There's always going to be some kind of battle that we're going to be fighting. And so we need to start learning today that none of us are better than the other, regardless of whatever color we are, whatever car we drive, whatever job we hold, whatever status we live in this world. At the end of the day, we're all human and we all have to face the same maker at the end of the day.
Yep.
He's going to be the only one that determines who was right and who was wrong.
And one thing I thought about when you were saying about eventually it's going to be all mixed race, it is. When people do the ancestry.com and all of those things,
Mhm.
everyone has a mixture of things in them. There's not just one pure anything. Like there's always something mixed in with something.
There's
Uh,
white and Black folks that live in China right now.
exactly, exactly. And that's why it's when you look at what history is and how we all originated, and people having the ignorance of what they don't know or what they were taught, because that I think that's another thing that needs to be addressed at some point too. Is there are some people who are raised in racist households, so
Hmm.
that's all they knew. Does that necessarily make it right? No, but your upbringing is typically the way that you carry on with your life unless you know differently. And you have to choose to be different. So I think that's something we also need to take into account when we are interacting with certain people who maybe are ignorant of what, a strong black woman or black family may stand for. There are some people who have never seen that before. There are some people who've never understood why there are certain individuals who are doing better in life than maybe they are based on their skin color. I've had those conversations with people before,
Mm-hmm.
to where a person thought that they were better just because of their skin color. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how would you feel like you're better when financially you're losing right now? Like, you're literally in a losing seat, and the only thing that you have going for you is your skin color, and they still feel as though they are superior. And I think that is just
Or
that
you could even be making more money.
learned behavior. Exactly.
Doesn't mean because you make more money that you're stronger.
You're right. Yeah.
Strong means how you handle certain situations and maneuver through life. Strong doesn't mean the sound of your voice or the thunder of your punch. No, it's how you deal with life
Yeah.
is what creates and makes strong people.
Yeah. And I think it's just sad when you see, you know, George Floyd shined a light on a lot of people and their true feelings on race and blue lives and all of those things. Um, the conversations that people had just here in our home state, like, this is where I'm born and raised from, and it just divided people instantly. It was crazy to just see how certain people were talking about things, and I'm like, I grew up with this person. Like, how are they talking down on a person just because they assume
Mhm.
something about him? Okay, yeah, maybe he did have a drug problem, maybe he did have all of these things, but that does not mean that he should have died.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the boiling point was. Like, there were people who were trying to make an excuse for, oh, well, he was on this, and oh, he was on that,
Right.
and he shouldn't have resisted. And it's like, but if the shoe was on the other foot, and
What
if the
was
cop was black, and if the man on the ground was white, what conversation will we be having right now? You know what I mean? Like,
we had that conversation
yeah,
when the police officer accidentally shot Diamond
right,
in Minneapolis. He's locked up. It didn't take as long as it did with George Floyd.
yeah,
That was a one and done. Like you messed up, and you're going down.
yeah,
Sorry, you're not a white man.
yeah, yeah,
It's over. Um, Court came up quick with that one, and
yeah,
so we got to see that.
yeah,
But even talking about George Floyd, like I remember um, at night I used to watch the news with my son and just trying to explain it to him. He used to look over at me and be like, "Mom, what's wrong?" And I said, like, it was so heart wrenching to watch, like, the world about to be burnt down because of this. And it's like standing in a room yelling that all you want is one thing,
mm-hmm,
and the world is trying to give you everything other than what you want. The whole cause of all of that was we just want justice.
yeah,
And like everything else, like you're willing to go ahead and bust in the stores and burn down the police station, and we got curfews now and we can't be driving around, which affects people. Like at the time I was managing a group home, and so my staff were calling me like, Davina, we can't make it. Like, we live in St. Paul and we're trying to get over the bridge into Minneapolis, and they got it blocked off and locked off, and we don't know what to do. And it was like, oh dang, I have to now start printing you guys off paperwork so that you can show the police so that you can get through. And it was just horrible.
mm-hmm,
And it was like on the opposite hand of that, it was like I had mixed tears, like tears that I want this to stop in the end, and then the tears of every state and
mm,
every country is chiming in.
yeah,
Like it gave just a glimpse of hope
mm-hmm,
that things would be different and things would be better.
Yeah.
And so those were happy tears.
Yeah.
Um, and so it took you on a very huge emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then to glimpse into today. Has anything even really changed?
Nope. Nothing's changed. Just the date. And that's the sad part about it, because I had that same emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
Um, and I wish I had what I wrote. With my job, we have like an intranet where you can kind of write vlogs within, just so the employees can see it. And I had wrote kind of like a little blurb about the George Floyd and how it affected me. And I got a lot of recognition from all different types of people, all different walks of individuals, in corporate and all different types of people. But the basis of what I wrote was I had mixed emotions from I'm seeing my community burnt down
Mhm.
from individuals in my community. And it was confusing to me because I understand why it's happening, but
Mm.
the way that it was happening didn't make sense to me.
And who it affected.
Exactly. When you're burning down Black owned businesses, that's what didn't make any sense to me. When you burnt down the police station, I can understand it. You know what I mean? Because it's like that kind of makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
You're trying to send a message, and I get it. And I'm not saying I agree with what they did, and I'm not, saying that I
And
think that should happen.
I'm not
But
agreeing or disagreeing either. I'm saying I had mixed feelings on both. Yes.
yeah, so it was more like, I was like, at first, I'm like, what did they do? They're making it so it's going to be hard for all of us to get groceries, and it's
Mhm.
going to be, we're all on curfew, like you said, and it just made a lot of things harder. It made, the police more on edge when they seen Black people, and it made me feel like, okay, I get it, but I didn't get it until I seen the effect that it had on the world. And it was like, okay, I understand now to a certain extent. But then when they started looting in random stores, that did not make any sense to me. And
No.
that's when I was like, okay, now I see people are taking advantage of it. I remember, at that time I was pregnant. We went on a car ride down University from St. Paul to Minneapolis. And I remember seeing the Target store that is right there off of Hiawatha. I literally seen people running out of this store with stuff, and there's water coming out. There's like fire extinguishers going off. There's, all this stuff. And I'm like, this is this is our world right now. Like, it really made me feel like we were back in like the 70s when they were rioting and doing all that stuff. Like, everything didn't make any sense. Like, it didn't seem like this was home, if that makes
Did
sense.
it
Like,
did it make you scared at night? At
yeah,
night, I was scared for my kids. Like, are y'all out or y'all safe and you good at home? Like,
yeah.
y'all come over here so that I know that you're good. Like, don't be having your butts outside
Hmm.
when things are happening. Like, I don't know. Like, when the nighttime came, I started to be scared of the night, like, because this is a perfect opportunity for, all of the people that just want to be doing no good things to
Hmm.
get out and mix right into it. And I think that that's exactly what ended up happening
Hmm.
is we had groups of people that wanted to send a signal, and we had
Hmm.
groups of people that just wanted to entertain some BS.
Yep.
And that was their perfect opportunity to, get in and get what they wanted out of it, which made it very scary.
Let's see, what did Crystal say? She said, when voices are have been silenced by people and systems, actions get attention, but actions have to be intentional and organized, or the cries will continue to be ignored. And that's what I think happened. The actions didn't get justice. No, I can agree with that completely.
Yep.
Um, that's why I said I had the mixed feelings, because it was like, I understand why they're doing certain things, but then there was also that second hand of, okay, but why are y'all doing all of this extra stuff?
Mhm.
And I was scared too at a certain point. not necessarily scared of the people who were there, but I was scared of the people who said they were coming. And you get these notifications of the Proud Boys are coming in town and all of these things. So at that time, I remember buying metal bats. I had one in my car, I had one in my house, I had one in my bedroom. Because I'm not any other type of person. So those were my mechanisms of, if I had to do something, I might not necessarily go to jail, but I'll be able to protect myself.
Mhm.
And at that time, like I said, I was pregnant, so I
Yeah,
feel like,
you're in a lot vulnerable stage. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, I need to have something on me.
I had a crazy boyfriend at the time, and so I just always made him stay home. Like
Yeah.
I need you to be here with us to look over and make sure we're good. Um, and I think that that was all the protection at that time that I needed. As long as he was home, I felt like I'm good. But whenever he said I have to go somewhere, that's when I'd be like, okay. So it would always be just me and Jaden here, and so I would make him come and get in the bed with me. Like, come on.
Mm,
But he hated watching the news with me, and I even remember watching the news, and there was one particular night that I was watching the news, and I just felt like even that news station, I'm not going to say what news station it was, but maybe somebody that's watching and listening, they'll know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. There was a particular news station that I felt like just was wanting to utilize that platform to talk about how, look at how Black folks are out here tearing up the world,
mm-hmm.
and how they need to get caught, and they all need to go to jail, and they all need this and they all need that, and had no care or insight
You know
on
who
what
that
was
station
really
was
happening.
funded by, right?
Huh?
You know who that station was funded by, right?
I thought it was funded by Black folks.
No, nope.
No,
No, nope.
that station,
Or are you talking about a
I,
radio station or a TV station?
a news station.
Okay.
This news station, I grew up watching and watched it most of my life. I no longer turn on that channel ever.
Mm,
Um, just not with it. That left a very bad taste in my mouth.
mm,
I just did not get it. I just didn't understand it. Like, I wanted to scream into the TV.
yeah.
Y'all don't see what's happening?
Sometimes people only talk about what they choose to see
Yeah.
versus what's really going on.
And
Um,
that's the problem.
to answer Crystal's question, how did I feel at that time of being a soon to be mother to a son? I was terrified. Um, I have two teenage daughters, and I never had to experience the same things as having a son.
Mhm.
Um, so, my thoughts at that time were, I'm bringing my child into something that is designed for him to be hated automatically
Mhm.
just because of who he is. And it was terrifying. Um, do I know how to, make sure that he is prepared for the world? Absolutely. Me and his dad are going to make sure that, he is well aware of, the world and how it views him, and have him educated on all the things that he needs to be educated on. But I mean, it's still terrifying, because of, where I live. I live in a predominantly white neighborhood now, only because, I wanted to have a nicer home. And this is just where we ended up finding our home. So just thinking about him growing up in this neighborhood, I could see him going through things, if we end up being here when he's growing up, there could be those moments, to where if someone doesn't know him necessarily, why are you in this area? Are you lost? And things like that. So it's gonna happen, but I think it's better for you to make your children aware of it versus sheltering them from it, and then they get, that shocking moment of, why
What's
are they treating me like that, mom? Yeah. She said there's something bone chilling about hearing a grown man call his mama. Yeah.
and it most definitely is. I'd say for myself, um, before the whole George Floyd, from when I was pregnant with Jaden, I thought about that like, damn, I'm gonna have a boy and he is gonna be a black man one day. And so I don't know if you remember this, Devin, but I was gonna name Jaden Clayton only
Mm,
because I felt like while he was filling out applications, if they seen the name Clayton, they would think that he was a white boy
mm,
and he would have a better opportunity than for him to have the name Jaden. My girls really liked it Jaden, so I gave him the name Jaden. But from the time that he was born all the way through even now, um, I have told Jaden numerous times that one key factor is to always be respectful to an adult. Anybody of the age older than you is your elder. And
mhm.
so to be respectful. And so not necessarily to submit to the police or to a white person, but to your elder.
Right.
So then it's not that, you know, he gets it mistaken and messed up one day and overcrosses some lines, not knowing that that's the line that I'm overcrossing. Like anybody older than you need to respect and you need to listen to. And if they're telling you something that ever makes you feel uncomfortable with inside, you can ask them, hey, can I please call my mom? And
Mhm.
I'll guide you through that moment. But during that time, I need you to do what you're being asked to do.
Right.
And it wasn't even over just fear of him being a black individual. It was over fear of all different kinds of fears. Me and his father is not together. He's going to have a stepmother. Is she going to care for him? Is she not going to care for him? How is she going to treat him when his father is not around? I'm also going to have a significant other, and how is that person going to treat him? So I was fearful for Jaden in all different areas of life. And to know that the one thing that I never really taught him, and it just dawned on me this year, was Jaden has always went to school where he's known everybody. Jaden went to school where his sisters and all of his cousins went to school, so the teachers and the principal and everybody else knew him, and he had cousins still there at that time. He now goes to a school out in Oakdale and he went with all of his buddies and he knows a lot of the teachers and a lot of other people, and so I drive him to and from school. And I never realized that I've never allowed Jaden to go somewhere where he's going to have to experience conflict.
Mm,
And as a mother, I would rather for him to experience conflict now in life than be a young man
yeah.
and endure some conflict and not know how to handle it. And so now we are talking about for ninth grade is next year. He might have to go to a neighborhood school so that he can not necessarily go there with the intention to fight, but to know how to maneuver through life. If
Mhm.
somebody's talking to you crazy and you don't like it, like how to handle that.
Yeah.
Know when to back down, pick and choose your battles. Some are worth it, some are not.
Mhm.
Not everything deserves entertainment. I can tell him that until I'm blue in the face, but until he actually experiences it, it means nothing to him. It's a
Yeah.
tool that he has that he doesn't even know what it is.
Yeah.
So, what is this even used for? Um, I think that I would rather for him to be a 13, 14-year-old and I just got scuffled up. Somebody just kicked my butt in school and I lived to tell it than I am a 22-year-old off into college and
Mhm.
I got shot
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to walk away.
Yeah. Well, they getting younger and younger by the day, so
They are. And so I got my work cut out for me. I got to get him in there. And no, I'm not going to send him to the roughest of the roughest, but I think that he needs to go, somewhere where it's a little bit larger and you're not going to get along with everybody, but
yeah.
everybody deserves a seat at your table, kind of like how we teach the ladies here of not everybody deserves entertainment. Not everybody deserves a seat. Not everybody can go.
Yep.
Sometimes telling somebody that and they're not ever put in a position of that, it's like you have a foreign tool and you don't know what it's used for.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm like, Titan's gonna be in school. We're gonna have to, and he's gonna. I already know he's gonna be athletic, so there's gonna be people who hating on him because of that, and and he's lighter skin, and everybody thinks he's cute, so he's gonna have attention because of that. So it's like, I know there's gonna be a lot that comes with that. So it's like I'm just mentally preparing to be that understanding mother, but also that mama bear that can attack if I need to,
Hmm.
in all the right ways. So I think that's just something, us as mothers, thinking about our sons out here in this world is like, it's a world of things that we just have to be prepared for and to be supportive of. So this was a great conversation.
It She said, when them girls start calling,
Yeah, they're gonna be outside. Can Titan come out?
she ain't ready for it, Crystal, because
No, I'm not ready for none of
Jaden
that.
14 and I'm not ready, and I know I
Mm-mm,
better have been ready.
mm-mm.
Uh-huh.
Knocking at the doors. Nope, he not
They,
here.
they
He
not
doing
knocking on
homework.
my doors, but Jaden show be coming home talking about can he go see his friend, and
Mm-mm.
I hear him thinking it's a little guy friend. He done told me over this past weekend his friend was having a hotel party for his birth for their birthday. That's what he said, for their birthday. So I said I need to talk to the mom. So he called and I'm talking to the mom, and she like, yeah, it's my daughter's birthday, and I'm like, daughter, if you don't take your butt in that room, boy, and lay it down,
Right, the
you
hotel party.
look,
No.
look hot in the pants, boy. Like, nah, you finna
Right,
go
you
to
better
the
see her at
Sky Zone
school.
tomorrow. You not finna
Right,
go to no hotel party.
you better tell her happy birthday at school.
Boy, no.
Mm-mm. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a topic on that. Kids.
Young dating.
Yeah, yeah,
What is too young, you know? Yes, we absolutely do.
yeah. Because I think that, yeah, that doesn't get discussed enough, but that would be a good topic. Um, what would be one takeaway, um, when we wrap this up about Black history? If someone is just now tuning in, or watching this recording, what would be one takeaway? She said not date until after he married. For
Girl,
real,
those don't last nowadays either. So,
right?
ooh.
Look,
Ooh-wee.
now you talking about that's a whole nother podcast.
Ooh-wee. Um, one takeaway. My takeaway would be that we all as humans need to do better by each other.
Hmm.
We need to go ahead and learn really our history, but try to let go of that pain. We
Yeah.
all have to learn how to move forward in life. Not necessarily move on, but move forward in life. We can't keep holding those burdens and that pain. We can't keep allowing other people to have that kind of hold over us.
Hmm.
Um, I can't even say black folks because I could say black people, I could say women, I could say men. Us as humans, when we get together, we are strong individuals.
Hmm.
And any group could be a group that is a very strong group, a very loud voiced group. I'd say, though, we all need to support one another. We all need to go ahead and we have to do our due diligence and our research so that we know what it is that our friend is going through, so we know how to better support them, and help one another move forward in life, because we all are going to have to keep walking on this journey. And I would say, for the most part, just to give it to God,
Right.
because He knows where our hurt and our pain is, but He also knows where it is that we're going. Then He's going to guide us there and He's going to get us there. And so I think we all have to be able to lean on each other so that we can lean on our faith a little bit more.
I like that. Um, One takeaway for me would be, since it is Black History Month, and we do have allies, I would recommend not being one of the all lives matters people. And I'll explain why I'm saying that. Because all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter. So when you hear people screaming Black Lives Matter, it's because the world is showing us that our lives do not matter still. So when we see people saying all lives matter, you're not even paying attention to what someone is actually saying, because if we mattered, we wouldn't even be screaming Black Lives Matter. So just educate yourself more on, why certain people do things, and like she said, we need to love on each other more than always trying to debate and go back and forth. And why don't you actually have a conversation with someone who's saying Black Lives Matter, versus trying to shut them down, and quiet them? Why don't you ask them what they're going through? Do they need something? Do they need support? So then you can actually understand why they're screaming that. Um, but yeah, that is my takeaway. And I do want to say thank you for tuning in today. We love y'all. We appreciate you. If today's conversation upsets you in any type of way, that is not what this was for. We are just trying to bring a voice to all different types of matters. So, with this, Black History Month, we decided to, see what Black history meant to us, and just had the conversation kind of flow. So, and this is how it ended. So we appreciate y'all, love y'all, and until next time, we'll see y'all. Night.
Bye.